Welcome to Chris and Jen in the morning.
You're going to have to do that again.
God, I love doing that to you.
Welcome to Chris and Jen in the morning.
Where it's always morning somewhere. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen. We are so excited to have you here.
Welcome, welcome, everybody.
Welcome. We're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go. Welcome to Chris and Jen in the morning.
Where it's always morning somewhere.
No,
See, I'm always ready. Always ready. Except I frequently forget to say I'm Chris, just like I did there.
Forget. You forget.
And words. Words are hard too.
Welcome to Chris and Jen in the morning.
Where it's always morning somewhere. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen. And we are so excited to have you with us today.
Yes, welcome everybody. We are excited for the topic today.
Are we? I don't know.
Well, let's start with gratitude and then we will jump into our topic.
What are we talking about today, Chris?
Well, originally the idea that was thrown out was this idea of time travel. And you had, like, even in the notes, you had put, like, Tesseract. And here I am thinking, like, oh, a Tesseract, that's what was in the Marvel movies. She wants to talk about, like, time travel in movies and film and that type of stuff. And then, whenever we agree on the topic, you actually send me 3 articles that are actually about, like, the physics behind it all and space and time and the Earth's rotation compared to moon and star. And I'm just like, this is not what I was expecting. But you know what? I read those articles, felt completely overwhelmed, used the tools that are at my disposal, and I am ready for a conversation. I do not promise it will be a riveting conversation, but
I sent you the article and you said, love it. I'll give it a read.
Yes, I did. And then I started reading it and was like, I don't think we were aligned. So
I think you lied. You were
look, this has definitely expanded my knowledge and understanding of things. So I love it from that aspect.
The more you know.
Exactly. The more you know. But before we jump any further, let's talk about gratitude because it is such an important part of our show and truly what we believe in helping ground ourselves in a positive space. So my gratitude moment is for a game that I have been playing recently called King's Shot. It's a like kind of a world building type game where you
Is it like on your phone?
Yeah. And so like you create your own, and I remember there was a computer game back in the day that was very similar to this where like you start out with very little and you have to like create a community and you have to defend that community and that community can join alliances and things like that. So that's basically what this game is.
So it's like Risk.
Yes, very similar to Risk. And so I started playing that this week and it has started out like it's just something to do because like as I'm like watching TV or like doing something that where I just need a distraction, like I'll play a game that doesn't require a whole lot of time and attention. However, towards the end of the week, like time and attention turned into oh no, you need to pay attention because now like if you want to continue in this game and you want to be successful, you have to join an alliance and you have to help that alliance achieve different things so that you can continue to build your community. Now, yes, there are components of it that may seem like, ooh, that seems a little stressful. That seems a little much. Yes, but I will say I have really enjoyed, like, I recently joined an alliance of, there's some more seasoned players, and they've been very helpful in, like, helping other people understand the game and what to do and how to, like, be successful. So it's been a lot of fun. I've only been playing it for about a week. I don't know about that, because, like,
I never thought of you as somebody who played games on their phone. I mean, I know there was that one dice game that
Farkle. Big fan of Farkle.
Stopped playing after a while. I don't know why. I don't know. Because I like to like start new things and then I'm like, it's like why I play games on my Switch and then play them to like 70% and then just like don't play them again. It's not
Maybe
about
that's why
it's not about
it's called
completing.
maybe it's why it's called Switch.
Yeah, because you switch it up, switch up the game, switch it up. It's not about like completing the game. Usually, it's just about like the novelty, I suppose. So Farco lost its
It could be.
novelty for me. It
Well, and
did
that one is very much so just like like it's the same thing. Like it's a
it could
rhythm
be
and
I
it doesn't
lost too many
change.
games in a row, and I was like, well,
Well,
screw this. I don't know.
I'm not playing this. I will say that one is much more fun. So that to me, like we started playing Farkle in my family when I was probably still in like 5th, 6th grade. And
And by the way, I love that you invited me to play with you.
yeah, look, it's a fun, easy game. If you've never played Farkle, it's a dice game, can very easily be done. However, if you are like struggling with math or things like that, it could also be a good game because it's all about like keeping score of the dice for each person who's playing. One of my nephews loves to play the game because he likes to be the scorekeeper, and so it's really helped him in his math skills and become like really good in math. So it does have some educational perks as well, but this game does not. No, this is none of that. This is like you are going through your universe, you are partnering up with others. I was up early this morning because my alliance was trying to take down some thing and I needed to be there. Yeah, usually the games that I play, usually the games I play are not that involved. It's usually like the mind games or like trivia type stuff. It's not generally like this type of game, so I've enjoyed it.
Play games recommended by the Harvard Business Review or HBR, as I
all
call
right. See, now this is why people feel judged about their gratitude moments.
Oh no! I do not judge you at all. I just am so excited that as if I didn't already know we were kindred spirits.
This has cemented it.
I think that you are incredibly like just on top of it all the time and so like smart and industrious, and you like do all of these things with your free time that are like so productive is the word I'm looking for. I think of you as a very productive person, and I know that when I go and play my games, it's kind of like a time waster, even though, I mean, is it really wasting time if you're spending time checking out and just kind of like allowing the back of your mind to sort of think or unwind or any of those kinds of things? But anyways, it's a guilty pleasure for me to play my games, and so I think of you as somebody who would never waste time on a game. Not that I am begrudging anyone from playing their games, because I do it all the time. And so I'm just really happy to know that somebody as productive as you is a gamer.
Okay. Well, thank you. However, I do want to say,
stealing my microphone.
No. What something that you said reminded me of a conversation I recently had with my therapist where I was like, I don't know, like I just feel like I'm wasting a lot of time and I'm not as productive as I would like to be. And so like we were talking about all the things that I had going on. And he was like, tell me again why it is you feel like you want to do things that like allow you to check out and like not have to worry about the things happening, every hour of your day. I was like, yes, this is why I come here for perspective.
Wait, that sounded like a judgment of wanting to do things that allow you to check out.
No. He was trying to help me understand like what I was probably subconsciously doing is looking for things to help me check out and help me not have to be as involved, like to allow myself that time to kind of rest and recuperate, your me time.
I feel to myself like, well, that's when you could be going on a walk, or that's when you could be like doing some art or finishing one of those potholder scarves that you started and never picked back up. But then,
like Chris still thinks you're just making potholders.
Then it just feels like a chore.
Now, he said all of this and it made me feel really good. And then at the end of it, he broke up with me. So
he's like, you don't need me anymore.
He's like, you are so enlightened. You don't need me anymore. No, that's not it at all. He apparently got a better job offer here. Like, one of the joys of living in New York City.
He's like, you're not enough to keep me here.
You're not interesting enough. I'm going elsewhere. So yeah, that was our last therapy session.
Well, good luck on finding a better therapist. I mean,
I
not
really
better.
feel like our gratitude moment
I
has
don't.
gone off the rails. So
So
Jen, what is
moving
your
along
gratitude? What is
to
your
my
gratitude
gratitude
moment?
moment. I was thinking this morning about all of the things that I have just been really grateful for, and then I keep thinking, oh, I keep saying like the same things over and over again, but like truly I am indulging myself and being really grateful for, the time to go take photographs, or how beautiful the birds are, or hanging out with the dogs, or my amazing husband who like sets everything up and um makes my tea and makes me toast, and like I just show up to the table and put my headphones on to record. Like so many things to be grateful for, but what I was thinking about this morning is I'm just incredibly grateful for all of our like listeners, all of our subscribers, this opportunity to do this podcast. I'm incredibly grateful for both you and Ace in agreeing to go on this journey and putting all of this effort and energy into it. And I'm really grateful for that because, like, for many reasons, but because one of the things that those of you who know me know really well, probably better than I know about myself, being vulnerable is incredibly difficult for me. And I also think that being vulnerable is something that's really important to getting to experience life and really to finding peace and joy. A lot of anxiety comes from running from vulnerability. And, I had the boss that we had worked for once tell me, like, Jen, you're so zipped up all the time. And I play that back in my head over and over again, for over a decade. And, because like I prided myself on being very like zipped up. And so this experience in figuring out like how to allow myself to become more vulnerable, I think has been really unique. I don't think I could have gotten this kind of experience in a different way. I just really appreciate that because it's a huge part of my personal growth journey. So I'm just incredibly grateful for everyone that shows up and participates in this, because for me, like this is something that I think is a big part of me becoming ever evolving the person that I want to be before
Yeah.
I kind of reach the end of my life. So I feel incredibly grateful for that,
I
even while I feel very uncomfortable.
I was just about to say, like, I think us deciding to do this has really pushed both of us in our areas of comfort in different ways. And I think what's been interesting is to see how we've all risen to the different occasions, and how, like, we don't live in the same state, we don't live in the same time zone. Like, we both
Yeah.
have dynamic things happening with our families, and
Yeah.
like we have still stayed connected, we've still made it happen, and we have, I'm just going to say, like, really leaned into this discomfort that we have felt in certain areas, and really been proud and put out stuff that we are proud to put our names on. And I just think, like, that's been so great for both of us, going back and looking at some of our older content to now, in what, it's been 7 months, we've come a long ways.
We've come a long ways. It hasn't even been quite 7 months yet, but we have come a long ways. And, I'm excited to think about where we'll be a year from now. But
Yeah.
I know that, as Ace has patiently been waiting for us to be a little less zipped up and a little more like who we are, I'm really grateful for all of the people that show up and listen to what we talk about and our thoughts and help contribute to that and share that offline, give us their, thoughts about it. I just am really grateful that they've created this space for us to learn, and specifically for me to learn how to become a little more vulnerable in a way that doesn't just like break you. So I just I'm incredibly grateful for that, because I think it's a gift. So I told you didn't want to go second.
You sure did, and I'm glad I did.
So I'm just super grateful for the birds that show up and sign the waiver and let me take the photos and, the sunsets. I got a fantastic picture of the moon, which I did share on our YouTube channel
You did.
last night. So, or early this morning, whatever that was, which
It was
when you're listening
so
to this will
good.
be earlier this week. Yeah, I was really frustrated because I couldn't get my camera figured out to stop changing my ISO setting. So while the moon was red and orange and, kind of right at the horizon, I didn't capture it the way that I wanted to, but I did get a really beautiful picture. So,
You did.
or about a few hundred.
Got to be
So,
one good one in there.
um,
I will say, though, that even the one that you took as you were trying to figure it all out was still a gorgeous picture. Like,
oh yeah, I hate it.
all right. All
Thank
right.
you. You're probably right. All I see are the things that are wrong with it that I did, and I want it to be perfect, but that's, on my struggle of not being so zipped up.
Yeah. So, I mean, not exactly in the same vein, but kind of like along the lines of the topic today. I do like to be zipped up. I like to know, like, really the front and backwards understanding of what we're going to talk about so I can feel like I can really contribute and have meaningful conversation with you. So literally I thought we were going to the topic, like I previously said, is around like time travel. And so to me, like that's truly what I thought we were going into. Like I was getting stuff ready for like talking about.
I guess you're just not inside my head yet.
I mean, when you sent me those articles, I said, love it, like great, love to have an article to read through, ready for. And then like I started reading like the depths of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And by that time I think I'd had like at least a glass of wine, which was not the best time to be trying to, really digest and comprehend those.
Or was it like you're a little less connected to your foundations of like reality? So maybe you can explore it a little better.
No, not for me personally, but that's just me thing. That's just me thing.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
But so I got up this morning and I read through them a couple of times. I sought other information and tried to like bring some pieces together. But I think because my first question to you is like, how do these articles even make it into your sphere of news feeds or whatever? If you had sent that request to me, I would have sent you very different things. I would have had gone looking for them. You like sent them 3 back to back to back, like very quickly. Like is this something that you are like looking up and so information is being served to you, or is it stuff that you are seeking out and better understanding of like how things operate around us?
Yeah, like those articles I didn't specifically have bookmarked or anything, so I had to go, search for them. I had read a few months back an article about how it was an article about a new theory on time. And, time is always a mystery to me, as I say constantly. It's one of the things I struggle the most to conceptually understand. I also have, as we've talked about, no sense of spatial reasoning. Space has always been, kind of a mystery to me, where I am in space, where I am in time. And so, of course, I remain curious about the things that are mysterious. I think that's, at least for me, the things that I fail to understand are things that I want to keep sort of fixating on until I understand them. And who can really understand time and space at their core? Like, if you think that you understand time and space, then you might be fooling yourself. Certainly, there are people that understand it better than I do, but
Yeah, but you're right. Like, I think based on the articles that you shared, like it is a constantly evolving
yeah. So
practice.
to me, it's fascinating. We haven't done this in a while because I watched all the ones that were out there that I was most interested in. What we used to on the weekends, just to kind of find my happy place, particularly in those moments where I was maybe a little less satisfied with my career, or a little more stressed out from a career standpoint, feeling a lot more pressure and anxiety, and trying to like remove myself from that mentally over the weekend. We
Huh.
would turn on like Neil deGrasse's documentaries of space and the universe. And like, to me, it's always been fascinating. When I was even like a really little kid growing up in the middle of the country where all there is just the sky. We used to go to, in Kansas, there's this place called the Lake Afton Observatory. And I mean, you can just see so many cool things. And they had a telescope there that, you know, you could look through, and like one of those really big high powered ones back in the day. And, you know, it was just really fascinating for me. And I always thought like it would be really awesome to be an astronaut, except for I don't do motion well, and I don't do confined spaces for sure at all. And so, two things you definitely need to not have a problem with as an astronaut is a confined space and
Yeah, yeah.
like motion sickness. So it was never going to happen. I mean, I rode the ride at Epcot, big spaceship Earth or whatever, and got out and vomited.
And that's how you knew you weren't going to space.
I already knew. But it doesn't mean I can't be fascinated with
That's
it,
right.
right? And
That's right.
so I think I've always had this fascination because, well, I guess when I was really little, I was terrified of the man in the moon. But I've always had this fascination with like space, and physics was really interesting to me. And, you know, there was like this conflict growing up between what we were being taught in school from a science standpoint and the church that I grew up in. And so there was like a lot of curiosity that I had and yet unanswered questions.
Yeah.
And so I think like it was just this unfed curiosity. There's a huge part of me that for years has thought, what if I would have gone into like some kind of scientific profession? So it's sort of a hobby, I suppose. Not like a hobby, just a fascination, sort
Yeah.
of a fascination,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, so this is stuff I read about. Sometimes I understand it, sometimes I don't understand it. It makes me think, which is, you know, I think like keeps me engaged.
I mean, it's definitely like I said, stretched my understanding and my way of thinking. So the three articles that you shared with me were the new theory proposes time has three dimensions with space as a secondary effect. The second one is a competing theory to dark energy suggests the universe has different time zones. And then the third one was Earth is spinning faster, leading timekeepers to consider an unprecedented move. So we will add links to all of these in the description. But I'm interested in knowing from you, like as you were reading these, like kind of what were the key takeaways? Like what were the things that made them stand out? And like if we weren't talking about Marvel and Back to the Future, like why these articles?
First of all, I have to say, it's so funny to me that you talk about Marvel and Back to the Future. Initially, like when I put Tesseract and time travel and all of that on the list, like what I go back to is thinking about the book A Wrinkle in Time. Did you ever read that?
I did not.
Oh, Chris, you've got to read A Wrinkle in Time.
Okay, I will add it to the list.
In fact, I will go back and reread it because I haven't read it for a while. There is a movie which Oprah was actually in.
Yep.
Which was pretty good actually, but the book is always better. So I'll go back and reread it again if you read it, and we can come back and talk about A Wrinkle in Time.
I just think like it is me who recommended a book last time to you for you to read.
Oh yeah, you think it's my turn?
Yeah, like
you would really
is
enjoy.
it a switch back and forth type thing, or is it?
You would really enjoy A Wrinkle in Time. It is a fictional book, a story about a little girl in search for her father, and it does definitely have like a very like it really does kind of challenge you to think. But Tesseract is something that they talk about in this book. Like a Tesseract is a wrinkle in time. And the way that I have always thought about that is like if you were to take time, like as a piece of fabric and sort of scrunch it up, it creates this like this wrinkling and you can move from one place to another. And I don't know, maybe that's how it's described in the book, which is why I think about it that way. I just can't recall specifically, but that was like the imprintation left in my mind after reading this book as a child is, you know, A Wrinkle in Time is like taking the fabric of time and squishing it up and being able to move from point A to point B, and avoid, the parts on the linear path forward that are wrinkled up. And so to me, that's just like really fascinating to think about. So I still suggest you read it, even though, you suggested it's not your turn to read my books.
Look, you know that I enjoy reading, so I will definitely add it to the list. I
So,
think for
what's
me,
my? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, like, whenever I saw Tesseract on the list, like, to me, that is something that's a item
Like
in,
in Loki?
like, yes, exactly. And so that's where my head went. So then, as like you send these articles and I'm reading through them, I'm like, this has nothing to do with Loki. I look up like Tesseract, like why
But
would
it
I
kind of
assimilate these
does.
things?
It
And it
kind of
does. Like
does.
it is a real theory. It is a real
Like if you think about if you think about the concepts from these articles, what we're talking about, and then you go watch Loki again,
yeah.
do you not bring a different set of questions and experiences and watch it with like an understanding of whoever wrote that must be thinking about, like, I shouldn't say whoever wrote that, because obviously, like, I just don't know who it is that wrote it. I can't call that onto the top of my mind, but the people like coming up with these fictional stories, to me it's fascinating to think about how these authors, these writers, must be thinking about the things that we take for granted, like time and space, and sort of questioning being able to think outside the bounds of
Yeah.
like the box that we draw around them. I don't know. To me, that's just really inspiring to sort of challenge the way that we think about things that you know, we just kind of take for granted. So, being one that is not so much the ambiguous, abstract thinker and is more logic tied than I am abstract tied. So, abstract concepts, even the word abstract slips my mind a lot. And I accidentally use the word ambiguous, which can sometimes have like a negative connotation. But like I admire people like my husband who has this ability to think of things more abstractly and so understand concepts that may not be within the bounds of like a logical, you have to understand how to get from point A to point B, cause and effect. And so for me, it's like really fascinating to start kind of thinking on some of those concepts. But so yes, I do sometimes watch and read and think about these things for fun, and sometimes it kind of hurts my head a little bit to think about it. But I think it's really interesting, and then to kind of set it in the back of your mind and let it just kind of bubble up and tie into other things that come up for you, I think is really interesting as well. So what did I take away from these articles? Kind of four key points. So one, like I definitely, as I was reading them, had this kind of persistent reminder that time is far less constant than we think of it. It's a really convenient thing for me to think about, being someone who is not really tied down to the construct of time. But ask Frank about it. I'm sure he'll agree with me. Like, time is far less of a constant thing than we think about it. And that makes sense. So if you think about it, where we have leaned to measuring time from a clock standpoint, from a computer measurement, from the things that run, our banks and all of that, has been the move to the atomic clocks.
Right.
And I don't know if you know this or you knew this before you read these, but atomic clocks are based on atom particles that are held in a vacuum, how many times they revolve around. So it's like this constant measurement of a tiny thing you can't even see with your eyes, how
Right.
many times it makes a revolution. And that is what sets the atomic clock versus what, if you think about it, we really do innately know, which is that like a day is measured by a revolution of the earth, but that changes, right? Like when the sun rises and when the sun sets is not a constant every single day.
Right.
And how long it's light and how long it's dark is not a constant every single day. And so if you think all the way back to before, we had telescopes and watches and clocks and things to measure these kinds of things, like how how did people measure the passing of time? What did time mean to them? Like, time must have meant something very different before clocks were invented, which I don't know when a clock was invented, because hello, that's a date on a timeline. Before a clock was invented, or in cultures that don't use clocks and whatever to live by, time must mean something very different to them, right? So to go, okay, well, to the exclusion of this thing that we've created, what does time actually mean? What does the passing of time actually mean? It's far less consistent than you would think that it is. And so what was fascinating to me is learning that time is actually speeding up. I thought, well, how can time speed up? Because time is just time. Like, it's,
Right.
how 1 second is 1 second and it never changes. 1 second is never variable. But we've actually added, I think it was 27 seconds to UTC.
Yes, I think
that was
that's
the
what
number.
the article said.
27 seconds have been added to UTC since, was it 1973? Maybe?
Yeah, since it was adopted and then happened in the 1970s.
Yeah, and so, like, to me, okay, it's 27 seconds. Is that really like massively, like crazy that we've added 27 seconds to time? Like, maybe not, but when you think about life being more than just a couple thousand years, when you think of it on a grander scale, like, that's pretty cool. But then the thing that was even more fascinating is that the revolution of the Earth is like spinning on average faster. It doesn't spin at a constant speed. So it's like it averages out to the 24 hours a day plus these 27 seconds over these decades that have been added. But it's actually spinning faster now. And so they are thinking there's like a 40% chance that there will need to be a second taken away from UTC. So one of the things I didn't understand is that every time they have to add a second to UTC, like I think there are like 40 different devices that monitor and manage UTC, and not everybody, like I would just think you all get on a virtual phone call and are we pressing the button now? Press the button right now.
Right.
And then they all press the button at the exact same time. But apparently
that is apparently not how it works.
Must not be because somebody always screws it up, and they always add the second at the wrong time or do something. And I'm actually kind of wondering, like, is this what in past decades have caused some of the issues with some of the software systems? Where I remember I was actually in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was on the phone with our head of HRIS because we were having an issue where all of a sudden our applicant tracking system wasn't working and like people couldn't use it. And of course, when you're in talent acquisition, what is the red alert? Pick up the red phone and call the 911 emergency number. It's like when people can't apply to a job, that's like all bets are off. Nobody's going to do anything until this is fixed, at least from my view. And so convincing everyone else that that's how it's going to be is sometimes, but I had a great partner in that. And I remember him saying something like the software that we were using was having trouble because of the syncing with UTC, like syncing with the clock. And so I don't know, but there's a part of me that wonders, like, is that a time period where one of the seconds was added and it kind of got added at different times depending on, so all the clocks that determine what UTC is, what most systems run off of, global systems run off of, got like just slightly out of sync. And then that screws stuff up, which is really like fascinating to me to think about how it all works.
And right, and UTC stands for the Coordinated Universal Time. So that's like saying consistently, this is what the powers that be, this is like the true time that we are all working from.
Yeah, so like Central Time is UTC +6. Eastern Time is UTC +5, except for when we're in daylight savings and, those time, whatever. We do our own version of time travel. But yeah, like, so it's funny that we say it stands for Coordinated Universal Time because it technically stands for Universal Time Coordinated, but who am I?
But to go back to the seconds that you were talking about, like these are like such small fractions of time.
But if you think about
ladder
them,
up to
if you think about them on the scale of like millions of years, that adds up. Right.
Correct.
So it's really interesting. And so I think my whole point around this as I get lost in this is obviously as we measure time like in a clock versus as the world revolves and we measure days and months and years, like think about leap year. We have to add a day every 4 years in order to keep up with
Right.
everything. So time is like far less constant than we think about it. We've just sort of categorized it really neatly. And so we don't ask questions about it because it's already all very neatly organized. So why would there be any question to
Right.
ask? So that to me is really entertaining. The fact that time is actually speeding up currently. So we may have to take a day away from, or a second, sorry, not a day. We're not taking days away, guys.
A
We're taking
leap,
a second,
a
leap
leap
second.
second.
But it might have to be subtracted. And then people are thinking about like Y2K all over again, because
Yeah.
if we can't even add a second all at the same time, how can we subtract a second? What is that going to do to all the computers? Is that even coded in to things? It's fascinating for me to think about, and kind of ironically funny, because time as we think about it is really something we made up to measure the passing of our lives, which is, kind of funny when you like just sit with that later when we're not talking. Just sit with that for a while. Time
Yeah.
is a thing that we humans made up to measure the passing of our lives. So what if you were to set that aside for a minute and just think about life without time? Like, doesn't that fascinate you?
It does.
Fascinates me.
I think it is super interesting, especially whenever you look at it from all of these things are being introduced over time, right? Like adding a leap year, adding
A leap
a
second.
leap second. Like these things didn't happen all from the beginning. They have all evolved.
Yeah, they were like, we're going to make up this thing called time. Oh, wait, this thing called time doesn't work anymore. So we're going to make up this thing called a leap year and a leap second and a leap. Well, then a council got together and voted that in 2035, by 2035, they're going to phase out leap seconds. So there will no longer be leap seconds. I suppose because the Earth is on average spinning faster than it is slower. And so they are phasing them out. Then I thought, side quest, how do you get to be on a council of people that decides whether or not we're going to phase out leap seconds? Like, somebody's doing that with their life. Not the only thing they do with their life, but like, that's a conversation people are having and making decisions about. And that decision impacts all of us. Like, that blows my mind.
But I do think it's a good example of like how when we as normal everyday citizens just going off of the, clock on our watches or the time that's on our phones, like we're not really taking into consideration those like the microseconds that actually are happening and that actually do have a big impact in the long run of things.
Maybe I'm not late. Maybe I'm just in sync with the real universe and you're in sync with the people deciding to add leap seconds. I don't know.
Look, if animals can seem to figure out how to migrate back to their homes, how to find their way south, like why can't humans have this innate sense of actual time, as I am surrounded by people who struggle with the concept of time?
I mean, maybe we do have this innate sense of actual time, but we have sort of evolved that out of us as
Right.
we've relied upon devices to handle that for us. I don't know. It's just, I mean, don't you think the earth kept spinning before we developed a concept called time of day?
Of course.
Like,
I think something interesting that
how
Dun-
precise is one of those dial stone? What are those called? Like sundials?
the sundials.
How precise is a sundial after all? It doesn't get to the second, surely.
Absolutely
Maybe
not.
it does. I don't know.
But also, it's all based on the rotation of the sun.
Right,
Again,
so it
it's truly
changes
right.
over
Exactly.
time. You're like synced in with the universe versus trying to sync the
Correct.
universe to you.
Correct.
What a human experience, right?
Right.
To think that the entire universe revolves around us versus us being a piece of the universe.
Right.
But that's a different but like, why do I think about these things? Like, that is like just fascinating to me, to kind of question how we think about ourselves in relation to everything around us. So that was really interesting. The third thing, I'm only on three. The third thing, I have four. The third thing that I took away from this, or well, I guess 3 and 4 are kind of combined. So, you know about the theory of space-time, right?
I do now.
You do now. So the theory of space-time is this concept that we have been kind of living from and sort of universally adopted, that time is one dimension and space is three dimensions. And if you're sitting there going, what do you mean? What does that mean? So time, we think of time being linear. We travel through time forward in one direction. So think of it as like I'm drawing a line from point A to point B, and we move from A to B, and it is always chronological. And that is, time is just a line. It's drawn in 1D. It doesn't have, it's a stick figure. Time is a stick figure. So that's currently, time is this the stick figure, one dimension, and space is three dimensional. So space is a cube. We accept that space is not, the Earth is not flat; it's round. We do accept that generally. We're not. Some people don't. The flat earthers are still holding out for that, but we accept that space is three dimensional, and that really space is the dominant being here, and that time just kind of fits into space. And what's interesting is that the newest theory, so there have been theories of three-dimensional time before. This is not a new concept to have three-dimensional time. But the theories of three-dimensional time that have come about before always provide some additional conflict or something else that you can't explain, which really is all of science and physics in general. Because to think that we know everything about everything, which all impacts everything else, is, just kind of a ridiculous assumption. And so, we just kind of think, well, this is how we think something probably works. And when there are little puzzles that can't be solved, there's some other, element that's coming in that we just don't understand, can't explain, haven't figured out yet. It's an unsolved puzzle. Otherwise, how would you ever create any theories on anything? You just kind of have to go with your understanding until you sort of start to become more enlightened, right? And so we talk about science as facts, but science is really always a theory, because it is always from the standpoint of the way that we understand things today and what we can conceive. And I think true scientists will say that, like, these aren't facts. This is the way that we currently understand it. And there could be something that comes into play that we didn't, a different way of thinking about things in general. And so this newest theory on 3D space-time, which has been presented by Gunther, I'm going to get the name wrong, Gunther Kletschka, who is an institute professor at UAF. He's a geophysical institute professor at UAF. What he's introduced, the thing that's different about this theory of 3D time is that it actually can be tested, whereas all of the other theories of three-dimensional time work out from a mathematical sense. It's like people are like kind of looking at math equations on a page and sort of theorizing, well, this could work or that could work. And this is something that can actually be tested. And so I think it's within the next decade or something, we'll find out whether it's a slow burn, guys, for all of you impatient folks like me. We'll find out whether this theory is actually proven or not proven. But what's interesting to think about is it does solve some of the challenges that, like, there's this. So, like, this theory of space-time, as we see it today, and this theory of, like, quantum mechanics and how we think about. So, Chris, think Ant-Man. That's quantum mechanics, right?
Yeah.
This theory of quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity. So, Sir Isaac Newton, gravity, they have this kind of conflict between them. There's this big open puzzle that it's like, when both things are held true, it leaves this gap. And so this idea of three-dimensional time that Gunther has put forward sort of solves this gap of unexplainable. And that's interesting to me. It's like this search for this theory of everything. Um, you know, how do we flip the way we understand things on its head and kind of think about it differently to solve the problem? So, I mean, how could you not find that fascinating?
I think the part that's hard is like if you are not in it, like it's hard to comprehend it and get it. Like I think that's the struggle that I was going through because it's not something like I am of the mindset that things are constantly changing and evolving. And if we think that things are just in one state and that's all like that's how we see it, that's how we understand it, that's how it will always be, I don't think that that is the right mindset to be in.
Yeah.
And that's something that I appreciated about all of these articles is it's talking about like this ongoing understanding and learning of what the universe is doing and how the universe impacts us, but also how our world and the things that are happening on this planet Earth are impacting the greater universe. So it's like it's to me been a fascinating understanding and like you said, kind of flipping things on its head from how we've understood it before. And I think one of the ways that I heard it explained was it flips that idea of instead of space time where there's one time in the three space dimensions, it's time space where there's three time and three space.
And they're all kind of interconnected versus
Correct.
one driving the other. Yeah, it's really interesting. And, you know, I like if I just stop for a minute and I think about like, why is science so fascinating to me? When I think about science, I define science as the constant curiosity of everything around you and in whatever way that may be. So you talk about like life sciences versus like physical science versus environmental science and mechanical science. Like there's all different kinds of science, but I really think about science as the constant curiosity and desire to better understand why and how things work. And as a child, like even from a very young age, I was always insanely curious about how things worked and why they worked the way. I was the kid that would take apart anything just to see what was inside of it and what made it all tick and how
Right.
to make it work. And often I'll take it apart and then struggle really hard to put it back together. But I think that's why, I just have always had this innate curiosity about things. And I think it's served me really well because when I'm being curious, I think I am my most productive self, which sort of doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but kind of does when you think about it. But I think that's a part of what has been like very beneficial to me from a career standpoint, is this curiosity. And then I think the process of becoming an adult, you sort of lose some of that curiosity, because you're busy, distracted, or, you don't have the time to be curious again. And so what I appreciate is, the last 3 months where I haven't been so distracted, I've taken some time for myself. I have this time to be curious again. And it sort of ignites this kind of wonder and this kind of childlike fascination
Yeah.
that, there's joy there. It's why I like taking pictures. I mean, what I realized is why do I take so many pictures of something? It's because I want to make sure that I can go back at the picture, look at the picture, and like really stare at it and understand it better because I am not able to process what I'm visually seeing as quickly as maybe some other people are. And so to take a picture of it and to go back and to look at it, like I can really contemplate it. I can really see it. I can really like imprint it and
Yeah.
start to understand it better. I love that, and I am envious that people like my husband have this ability to walk into a room and kind of assess what's going on all around. And I am like, I missed all of those things. But if I go back and I look at a picture and I kind of contemplate it, I can sort of take it all in. And so, I think part of why I love science is because it is like your intent, your purpose to sit and contemplate things and test what you know and kind of just ask the question why, which is something that I think innately was always something inside of me. And so it's interesting. But when we think about time being 3D, you might be thinking, what? How does that even work? Like, what does that mean? Does time go forwards and backwards? And like, what does that mean? So, the first dimension of time in this theory is like time moving forward like we think about it today. So that one dimensional time, like we think about it today. The second dimension is this concept that there are perpendicular paths of time that exist. So they're kind of running perpendicular, not parallel, but perpendicular to us, and they exist. And the third dimension of time is like the means to go between. And what I thought was interesting about that is it's not described as like parallel time paths, which, like, when you think about Loki and you think about some of the other, 3D time or kind of time dimension, ideas that are put out there as kind of as science fiction. It's like there's these parallel times that exist or parallel universes
Right.
that exist. What I took away, if I'm understanding, and I'm not claiming to understand because I've had no conversation, but what I have taken away from the things that I've read is it's like time can twist and contort because it exists within space. And the way that I related it is like the decisions that you make or the things that you do or the things that happen, how we evolve collectively sort of twists or contorts time. And that's how you end up on these like these perpendicular time paths that then shift you to a different outcome, which is really intriguing. And I'm sure I understand just a microscopic amount of, what he understands as he's coming up with this theory. But it's interesting to think about because it's not like this, fantastical idea that there's some other version of me out there living this same life that I'm living, but a different life, like Into the Spider-Verse. But it's more like something I can, I guess, concretely relate to, like a cause and effect. This most three-dimensional or all other three-dimensional time models sort of throw away the cause and effect model. And this theory maintains cause and effect. So mathematically, it still works out. It can be tested, which is really interesting.
Well, and he talks about it, the difference of like that walking like on a straight timeline. It's more about like getting to those like crossroads and then starting to step sideways, which I thought
Yeah.
was a fascinating perspective of it because that's not how we talk about time.
Yeah, so you sort of step sideways and then you carry forward. So if you think about this, like in this A Wrinkle in Time, this tesseract that I mentioned in this book, it's like as if it's not like a wrinkle that bunches up a linear time that exists and you move from one piece of time to another, but it's like a wrinkle that twists and you sort of move to a different outcome, which explains why things that we predict that should occur don't occur because we've sort of made a decision that's sort of wrinkled things up and moved us onto a different trajectory. So maybe I like this concept because it is, this kind of logic-based understanding of why something happens versus this abstract like idea of not ever being able to understand it. I don't know. But I think it's really interesting to sit and think about whether it's fact or fiction or still our concept of what we understand time to be based on how we can relate it to our experience today. And really, how could we understand something that we cannot relate to ourselves? Like I think there are only few people that have that exceedingly rare gift, and those are the visionaries
Right.
that that I so wish I was born to be, and yet I am not.
Yeah, but you talk about like having that curiosity, and I think that's something that you people can work towards your entire life. Like it's not, there are some people who just have like this theoretical mind and they understand the what ifs and they can play that game and do all of the things. But I do think there's a beauty in like understanding the concepts that we as humanity have accepted as the, parameters of which we live, but being open to that not being the only understanding of how that works in our world. And to me, as I was reading some of these articles, kind of that notion was coming through for me around that idea of like people continue to research this stuff because our understanding of it is changing, because people are spending time, energy,
Yeah.
effort on better understanding it. And the evidence is coming out, right? Like we talk about the microseconds. Like those are things that people, like not just one or two people have come together, like a group of people have come together and said, we are all seeing this change. We are all seeing a difference. And at first it was that it was slowing down, and now it's speeding up. So like, what are we going to do about that? Before I read these articles, had no idea those conversations were going on in this world.
Yeah. So before we started our podcast session this morning, I was doing deep research, i.e., scrolling through YouTube Shorts, and there was this thing that came up that basically was like this list of 5 or 6 things, and it was like, ego kills knowledge and fear kills dreams, and you get to the bottom of it, and it says now read all that backwards, and like dreams kill fear and knowledge kills ego. And that really resonated with me because, as we talk about like the more we know, really the more that we know, the more that we understand how little we know or what we thought we knew to be true that may just be, a microcosm of the bigger picture. And so to me, that's fascinating because, I think the more that you know, the more that you can start adjusting what you think you know to kind of get to a broader understanding of what might be. And the more that we have a broader understanding of what might be, the better that we can relate to other people. If we go to, some of the things we've talked about in past episodes, like strengths and vulnerability, one of the top strengths of mine that's come out in some of those assessments is being a relator. And so if I think about that not as a weakness, but as a strength, a real strength of mine, one of the things that I'm constantly trying to do is not just understand how I perceive things, but understand how I perceive it and how somebody else perceives it and what the differences might be. Because if I can understand that, then I can better adjust myself to their orientation or their point of view, because I already know that it's different. I just have no concept of what it might be. And so I'm always like, well, show me what's different. Like if I remember saying early on in my career, as I was being given feedback about something that, they desired that I be different in, and I can't remember specifically what it was, but that's what it's all about. How can you be different than you are today? I remember thinking like, if I understood how you wanted me to be versus how I am, I would already be there. So like, I just need you to tell me what could be an alternate reality. And like I say this, I've said this to my therapist before too, like if I got it, I wouldn't need to be here having these conversations with you. So I need you to give me a little something to understand how else might I think about this? Because if I already knew the answer, I'd have fixed it. So I think like that's my desire to constantly understand what might lie beyond is how can I see something differently? Because all I can understand is what I know, and what I know is definitely not all there is. And so, once somebody enlightens me, I can start, that's my inside the box thinking versus my abstract thinking, right? Like once I'm enlightened, then the box gets bigger.
I don't know if a lot of people like see it that way or take that perspective on life. Like if I'm being honest, like I think everything you just said around like if I knew how you wanted me to be showing up, I would be showing up that way. If I understood what I should be doing differently, I would be doing that. I don't know if that's innately something that people like that's the approach that people take. Like I think a lot of people go through the world as in, well, this is me. There's been a lot of conversation around like being your authentic self and why should I have to be the one to change? Why? Like, I feel like the conversation has changed, but I also feel like there is to your point, to better understand what is happening around us, you have to be curious about it. And if you aren't being curious or you're not seeing the outcomes of things that you are hoping for, maybe the question that you innately are asking is, well, how did I not get my point across? Versus maybe flipping that question on its side and saying, well, how could I said that differently? Or how could I have shown up differently to make that point or make that argument in a different way? Because based on hearing what you just said, like that's where your mind goes, is like to that place of, oh well, how could I have done that differently, versus how can I put it on someone else to have changed so that I don't have
Yeah.
to.
I mean, I will say, as one of the things that just more recently I have maybe evolved to, is a little less eager to constantly feel like I have to change who I am and still figure out how to be my authentic self. Um, so when people say be kind to yourself and then they also say you should change, that feels like in direct conflict. And so that's a hard thing to figure out. But I think where I've evolved to more recently is less like, how can I change me, and more like, how can I see this differently? Like, what is it I must
Yeah.
be missing? If we're in conflict, there must be something, like it's never an A versus B situation. I think one of the things you and I have had forefront through our careers dealing with humans is the world is all kinds of shades of gray, and it's never the polar A or B. It's always somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And so whether I change myself, whether I agree, whether I don't agree, um it's not really the question. The question is, how do I interact differently? How do I understand differently to meet somebody where they are at, so that we can be not in direct conflict. Now, that doesn't mean that I think we should never be in conflict, because I think some conflict is healthy.
Yeah.
And when something is wrong, it's wrong. I just don't think there are as many absolutes in the world as we think there are.
I'd agree.
And often when we just feel absolutely like something is wrong, it is because we are seeing a different reality than that other person is seeing. Because I do believe that, like one of the laws of the universe is that things and people take the path of least resistance. Like, that's gravity. That is the relative theory of gravity, is that things will take the path of least resistance to be pulled down to where they're going. Things don't move upwards. They fall, you throw a ball up and it comes back down.
Right.
And so, if we just keep that in mind, then somebody else's version of reality has to be different. They must have some different set of facts. They're playing with a different hand of cards. So they're making different choices about what cards they would play than what cards I would play. And if I can be in a place where I'm curious more often than I am judging how they are choosing to play, then I may be able to understand it better. It doesn't mean that I have to change my position or my point of view or my beliefs, but it does mean that I can relate to them better, so that I can understand, and we could build more bridges than we do, set things on fire and, throw weapons
Right.
across the way. And so, I think if I were to really figure out how to lean into that strength of relator, it would be, how do we build more bridges? How do we stop screaming across the chasm at each other?
Yeah.
And we start to understand, like, people naturally may be coming from a similar good place and just landing on a different outcome because they're working on a different set of facts. And if you think in terms of absolutes, you're not going to get to a place of shared understanding or shared meaning. What you're going to get is just constant dissension, which is, I think where we find ourselves so often in
Yeah.
society and throughout history and time. But, what's interesting to me as we start to talk about human nature, so I talked a little bit about curiosity and this constant, desire to understand the world around me. And
Uh-huh.
yet I think I've long said, when will I feel like an adult? I don't know, sometime in my late 30s, early 40s, that I'm now in, that I finally was like, oh, I guess I'm an adult. I mean, I have a kid in college, but I guess I'm an adult now.
I
But
have arrived.
I think my version, my definition of becoming an adult is sort of losing touch with some of that wonder and that curiosity. And my desire, my mission is to kind of get a little more reacquainted with the day to day wonder and curiosity so that I don't miss out on life. And there's a quote that I heard recently by J. Krishnamurti, and it goes something like, as soon as you teach a child that a bird is called a bird, they will never see the bird again. And when I first heard that, I was like, what does that mean? And then I sat with it and I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, yeah, like as soon as you define it and you put a label on it and you categorize it, you then stop being kind of curious about it. And it was interesting that this quote entered my sphere recently as I've been taking pictures of birds in my parents' backyard while being back, where I grew up, dealing with some family stuff, and thinking, as soon as I know what the bird is called, I'm a little less curious about what that bird is.
Oh,
And I'm a
interesting.
little less excited. I'm still excited to see the bird, but I'm a little less excited to see that bird because what I want is to see a new bird, like an undiscovered bird. I mean, I think that's a part of something inside me, like this explorer part of me that always wants something novel. Now I know, oh, well, that's a blue jay. So I know that's a blue jay. And I sat and looked at the picture I took of it and I understand it better. And so now it just exists there. And the first time I saw the blue jay, like I was so excited to have got a picture of the blue jay and how like wonderful that was. And so where I'm challenging myself is to constantly be curious and excited by the things instead of that kind of compulsory sort of habit of going,
Yeah.
well, I know what it is and I've categorized it. I put a label on it. I know where it fits and where it belongs, and I know the things about it. And so I don't need to be curious about it anymore. And I can go be curious about other things, which I think is probably human nature, right? Identify threats. If something is not a threat, focus on other things and figure out what it is and how it relates to you and if it's a threat. And I think fighting against that part of ourselves is really interesting. So I also was very recently over the weekend listening to something that this person Adyashanti had said. He's this individual that like has spent a lifelong journey of seeking this kind of enlightenment. And when I first heard him start talking, I thought, whoa, this is like kind of out there. So this is not for me. So I sort of had this compulsory desire to like turn off what I was listening to. And then what I've been trying to do more is when I start to initially think that, oh, wait a second, this probably isn't for me. I don't know that I agree with them. I go, well, wait a second. Am I listening for agreement or am I listening for understanding? And so I make myself continue to listen. And so it was Adyashanti that shared this quote about the bird. And they were just talking about how we categorize or how we label things. And that causes us to lose the wonder in them as soon as we think we know what they are. And when we lose our curiosity, we then fail to see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And so it's like that thing that you see every day, the things you do every day. You don't wonder what it is. You don't have this sort of curiosity versus when it's new, like when you moved to the city. Everything you saw was like novel and exciting and new, right? And now you kind of probably find yourself walking by some of the same things that you thought were new and novel and like not even seeing them
Fair. Dime
anymore.
a dozen.
It's kind of like going back home to Kansas. Growing up, the sunsets were as beautiful as they are today in this expansive sky. And yet I didn't spend any time watching them because they were there all the time.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, this sunset would have been so much more beautiful in this expansive flat space where
Yeah.
I could really see the sun dip into the horizon. And so, kind of makes me go, well, what am I missing out on where I'm at today in this moment? And this whole idea I've been searching for the past like 15 years of how do I dance in the rain? How do I really live in the moment and get to experience it for what it is? And so this kind of concept of the more that we categorize things and the more we label things makes us less curious about them, kind of moves me into this thinking that I've been sitting on for months of, like how we categorize and label people. This, like, I think it's human nature within us. You see it in society through over the years. Like, the easiest thing for me to talk about that I think we can all relate to is fashion, for instance. You think about, 100 years ago, what was culturally accepted and appropriate in certain societies. If you were to wear that today, you would not be considered socially acceptable. You would be seen as weird. Like, people would go, "Oh my gosh, what is up with that person?" And you would all of a sudden be the out group. And so, like, it it sort of incites this, like, frustration in me that why don't we all just understand that these labels that we put on each other are sort of fleeting over time, and yet they really control how we interact with all of the people around us. So as I think about all the tension in the world today, whether it's who you love, who you want to marry, what color your skin is, what country you're from, how you vote, like, why do we have to label everybody in these neat little categories? And then all of the sudden, we're no longer curious about that person anymore. Oh, well, you voted for this person, so, like, I just write you off. You're from this country, so I just write you off. Whatever country that might be, you are, you look different than me, so I just write you off. Like, I do think it's a part of our survival instincts. So then I kind of go, why are our instincts triggered this way? But the more that we categorize and label and have a name for something, the less curious we are about it. So what would happen if we just spent more time being more curious about the things that we think we know, like time or like humanity? And I know I've mentioned that show, You Can't Ask That, but part of the reason I'm so drawn to that is because it makes you start to get curious about what it might be like to live in a different reality,
Yeah,
live in somebody else's reality, and to acknowledge that their reality might be different than yours, and it might not be as you see it. And you don't have to change anything about yourself for what you believe to understand where somebody else is coming from. Though oftentimes I find when I am so staunchly planted in my own views, and then I allow myself to be a little more open. Sometimes maybe it is me that needs to change my perspective of how I see things. Sometimes it's not. Like, how we treat people. I'm never going to advocate for hurting people, but also, like, somebody else could have an opposing view than I do, and they also are not for hurting people. Their
yeah,
set of facts may be different. Their perspective may be different. Both things can be true. And I
correct.
think when we categorize and label things, somehow we've started to assign them as only one thing can be true. And this intersectionality of where we all kind of, fit sort of gets lost. So I
Well,
told you I was going to take this to sociology.
here we are. We have arrived. No, I do think there is something really unique about what you just said. Where I work, it's actually written in our values that we want people to be brave enough to defend your opinions. Like, we want you to feel you have space, you're at the table. It's because of all of our lived experiences. We have the opinions that we do, but we take it a step further and say, but also be willing to change them and be willing to concede that, oh, well, my opinion isn't the most right. Like, it's not about being correct or, like, in that space of being right. It's just moving in that direction. And I do think there is when you get people who have those open minds, who are willing to engage in those conversations and share perspectives, but also create the space to allow others to share theirs, there is something that comes out of that that allows for more space and understanding of what is the reality. Because not all of us have experienced every lived experience. Not all of us have traveled on every road. Not all of us have been through the same stuff. And it's in those opportunities that we have that we can share those, and we can all come to this place of a better understanding. And if you're trying to move forward, if you're working on a project, maybe it's just trying to understand humanity in general. You at least better understand, because no one is just one absolute. Like,
Yeah. I
we
think,
are so
like,
complicated.
yeah. So if you go back to, like, why do I read these things? Why is this fascinating to me? Like, what is it that I get out of this? Why is this in my feed? I think to me, it's a reminder that the set of facts that I am working with is constantly incomplete. Like my understanding of this world, myself in it, everyone else in it, how we relate to it, when I die, I will die with it incomplete. And that's okay. Like that's normal. That's to be expected. I'm
Yeah.
never going to know all the things. It's not really about being right. It's just about how we show up and how open we are to interacting with other people. And instead of pursuing this like desire to be right, it's pursuing this desire for harmony. And how can I make space for other people in a way that doesn't cause disharmony? So I think when I was growing up, the way that this was argued, because I grew up in a culture that was very much there is a right and a wrong, and if you make space for somebody else's right that's not your right, then it threatens you. And I don't believe that to be true. I think that you can still hold the beliefs that you hold and not have them threatened, and still be open to seeing how other people may see things or live things, and kind of question the way that you. So I'm not going to throw away all my clocks, guys, just because time might be three-dimensional and we may have a misunderstanding of it and we're adding leap seconds. Like, I still have clocks. I still have to be on time. I still have to feel bad about not being on time, and not only feel bad about it, but like actually actively do things to make myself on time. I still subscribe to this because this is what the world that we live in. Like I am going to keep questioning, what our understanding is, because there might be more out there for us to perceive. Like there might be a different way for us to relate to the world, and I think that's fascinating. And so if I apply that to how I interact with all of the people around me,
Yeah.
what if I see the homeless guy standing on the corner every day with his sign asking for, money and help, as not just a homeless guy sitting on the corner looking for a handout, but like as a person who's lived a life that somehow brought him here. And instead of deciding whether or not I agree or disagree, or how comfortable or uncomfortable it makes me to see him sitting there, or whether I should or shouldn't, offer him something, because that does that play into him sitting there, or day after day, and not help him get better. Like these are questions I don't know how to fully answer, but what I do know is that what led him there, I don't know. And what if I got more curious about what led him to stand on that corner? What if I got more curious about the people that stand on the corner to scam you out of money because, then they get in their car and drive home? Like what leads a person to be in that situation where they will act in that way? And it doesn't mean that I have to change what I'm going to do about it. It doesn't mean I
Yeah.
have to change my beliefs, but it just might change how I interact with the world around me. And I definitely believe that our actions have an equal and opposite reaction. And so the way I interact with the world around me is all going to come back at me. And so kindness is what I want back. So kindness is what I'm going to continue to try to pursue. And I don't do this perfectly. I'm confident I am unkind in many ways. And I am just constantly trying to understand the world better around me so that I can provide more kindness.
I
Not
mean,
just so I get something back out of it, but you're not wrong.
no. I hear where you're laying down. Okay, we have like talked about two like huge
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
We've talked about time and how we conceptually understand it is evolving, is changing, is still being studied, and may still be changing here in the future. We may be losing a few microseconds. Who knows? And then we've also talked a lot about like understanding the humanity of people and how allowing our curiosity to understand what has brought people to where they are in their lives can potentially allow us to connect with each other in a better, more meaningful way that hopefully leads towards more opportunities for genuine connection and genuine change that we as a society probably all want, but I think right now we probably differ on how we achieve it. I do just want to say, if you are on the journey of understanding the concept of the time stuff, like, let me tell you, I have said it before. I think, Jen, you can learn anything. Anything you put your mind to, you can grasp on and get a strong understanding of. And I think this is a perfect example of one of those things that you have done that just constantly amazes me. I will say this idea of time being challenged was not originally something that you brought to my attention. There were a couple of movies that I've seen that I thought have really unique ways of telling the story and talking about a lot of like lived experiences and life or time not being so linear. So one of my favorites is a movie called Arrival. It came out in 2016. It's a film based on Ted Chiang's 1998 short story of your life. The film was actually directed by Denis Villanueva. I think I'm saying that correctly, but it starred Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, and
Oh, some
Forrest
good
Whitaker.
names there.
Yes,
I
and
haven't watched this. It's not scary.
it's not scary. It is based on the idea of aliens arriving on Earth, but the where the story goes is beautiful, and I would say it's one of those films you can't just watch one time. You need to watch it a couple of times
All right, I'll watch
to
it.
truly understand it and process it. It's one of those movies that I'm like,
I'm going to trust you
I'm a
here
thinker.
that I'm not going to be terrified by this, and
No,
I'm going to
no.
watch it.
I think there's one scary part, and it was like it's not meant to be. It's not like gory or anything like that. It's just like kind of a didn't see that coming type thing.
Oh, okay.
But it taught the. I don't want to ruin it for anyone. I highly recommend it. Check it out.
All right, let's fly you in and we'll watch it together.
We'll watch it together. And then the
I'll
other
FaceTime
one
you.
is Interstellar, which is a 2014 film by Christopher Nolan.
Sandra Bullock, right?
No, this one has Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain,
Anne Hathaway.
Michael Caine, and Mackenzie Foy.
You know, commonly we get those two confused.
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock and Anne Hathaway.
Common, very common. But this one, again, kind of plays, I think it does a really good job of showing kind of time in that 3D perspective.
So
and so, again, another one that the first time I watched it, I don't think I truly like grasped it, but then the second, third time I watched it, it was finally making sense. And again, it doesn't like these are films, they're entertainment. It's like meant to, you know, for you to get lost in an hour and a half. But what I appreciate about it is it started to challenge the way that we conceptually understand things. And that game of what if and the this could be more than was played up really, really well, but not served up in a way that was like, you know, here it is, accepted. It was very like told throughout the story, right? They're both really, really good movies. I would prioritize Arrival personally over Interstellar, but both really great movies.
Didn't Sandra Bullock star in some movie where she was like floating in space?
Yeah, I think it was called Gravity, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Not what you're talking about.
No, not the one I'm talking about. Not at all.
Noted. I haven't seen them, so don't know.
And then the other kind of things that kind of made me perk up my ears whenever I saw this topic on our topics list, I am served up in my YouTube shorts a lot of Neil deGrasse Tyson content. He is great. I would highly recommend like going and listening to his stuff. He is like a real human being who tries to share this vast knowledge of stuff that can be very complicated, but serve it up in a way that it can be digested and understood. And he's also done like kid books to help introduce these concepts at a younger age, which I absolutely love.
I mean, totally have an answer to the if you could have dinner with anyone.
You would choose him?
I mean, I'd be terrified to choose him because I'd be afraid that I'd just like totally waste it by not like being curious or enough or smart enough or, you know, being able to even like show up in any real capacity to not like waste the potential of that experience. All of that to say, completely intimidated by the concept. But like, man, that would just be so I mean, I'm just so fascinated by and inspired by him that, yeah, absolutely, I would have dinner with him.
Yeah, highly recommend books, podcasts, all the stuff. He's great. The other one that kind of got me more into what's happening in space, which we talked about in one of our episodes, like if aliens exist. I think that's kind of where they ended up, and Neil deGrasse Tyson and this other individual, Astro Alexandra. I think that's how they started popping up more in my was because I was liking their content and trying to better understand, how the galaxy works and all of the things. But both great individuals to, if you are open to learning more and having, like, starting to hear these things in bite-sized pieces that kind of let you linger and provide, like, it's all based on actual studies. And the cool thing with Astro Alexandra is she is pulling, like, pictures from the different satellites and oh my gosh, what do you call them?
Like space telescopes?
Telescopes. Thank you.
Like the
Yes.
James Webb Space Telescope?
Struggle is real over here.
First it was the Hubble, then it was the James Webb Space Telescope, and my goodness, like, can we just talk about what incredible images are coming back about the universe, like of the universe?
Which is, like, it's changing our understanding of it.
Fascinating.
Yes.
It's fascinating. I just want to know more. I like kick myself every time I think about the opportunity I had when I was in college to intern at NASA. And like, I mean, I don't know. Did I want to be like an HR intern at NASA? But I probably wanted to be like I don't know. Cannot go back and second guess our choices, but like how
Right.
fascinating, right?
I mean, you could have had out of this world stories. See what I did there? Well, we would like to hear from all of you. Like I said, we've talked about two major topics, but like, share with us. Is this something that is showing up in your feed? This idea of our universe, our understanding of time. Is that stuff that, like, you're constantly involved in and learning more about? Are you a sociologist who's learning more about the way that we connect with one another and how we're evolving in this new age? Like, technology is advancing so quickly, which is changing the way in which we interact with one another. Like, we'd love to hear from all of you. Depending on what platform you're listening to us on, you can leave a comment, or you can always reach out to us via email at chrisjeninthemorning@gmail.com, or you can leave a voicemail or text us at 940-278-8129.
And if you have any great pictures of space, the moon, the sunset, any of that, or if you want to see, I did post a picture of the moon that's pretty spectacular, I think. So if
I
you want to
concur.
see, that's on YouTube. Check us out. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I don't know, all the places, Spotify. We're in all the places. And feel free to like, follow, subscribe, comment, tell us what you want to see more of, share your photos with us. I would absolutely love to see your photos of the moon and the sunset and space. So definitely please share. It brings me joy. So I would absolutely love that. And until next time, be kind to one another and let's make it a great week.
Bye, everyone.